What's up? Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. It is playoff week. It's Rams week. Yes, we are turning the page from the Detroit Lions game, and we move on to the wild card round here on our bonus episode of the Minnesota Football Party on Locked On Sports Minnesota. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen today or watch. For your second one, check out Locked On Vikings with Luke Braun and get our audio on the Locked On Vikings podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts. Today, Sam Darnold, can he bounce back? And if he doesn't, what does that mean for his future? I'll play some trend or mirage with our great panel here, and Rams players that we are concerned about. Who would we like to stifle? If we were the Vikings, we could choose which Rams player we want to contain. Who would it be? Before we meet our illustrious group of Vikings experts, let me tell you that today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets if you win or lose that first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Let's go around the horn and meet the crew for today.
Well, I'm Ron Johnson, former NFL wide receiver, of course, Gophers Hall of Famer, and I want to talk about why Sam Darnold is about to remind the world how good he really is.
I'm Julia Daniels, KARE 11 sports reporter. We just discovered that the next game that KARE 11 carries for the Timberwolves is February 8th, Super Bowl weekend. Are we going to have a scheduling issue?
Maybe in New Orleans.
I'm Reggie Wilson, sports director at KARE 11, and PU. That game in Detroit was a stinker. Can they put it behind them, though?
Yeah, I think we should actually start with that, Reggie, because you were there. I'd like the firsthand account. Just give us a vibe check on the energy in the building. Compare it to the previous week. I mean, you had Vikings-Packers the previous week, and then you go to the Detroit side of it the next week. What was the energy? What was the vibe? I never really heard a good figure either on like how many Vikings fans really showed. Did it feel like they had a meaningful presence? Just give us a little bit of behind the scenes of the Detroit vibe.
Yeah, I remember just kind of scanning the crowd like once the game really got going, and it was a lot of Honolulu blue. Like it was, you sprinkled in like a couple specks of purple in there. Like I remember, the big story was that the Vikings bought 1,900 tickets for their season ticket holders to buy back from them. And I looked behind the bench and it was still a lot of Lions fans. Like it was a lot of Lions fans. That place was rocking. It was loud. Someone asked me, like, was that like the loudest that you've ever heard? No, I still think that it gets louder in the bank just because of the acoustics and all that stuff in there. But it was super, super loud. Like when that first touchdown from Jahmyr Gibbs happened, that place went insane. And also, Ron, I know you probably grew up on this, and I'm just going to keep saying it because Dan Graziano confirmed it. He called it the cringiest post-TD song, but the Lions fight song is the worst song that I have ever heard in my life, and I will never, ever forgive the Vikings for giving up so many points and touchdowns because we had to hear that Lions fight song so many times. It is the worst song I've ever heard, but people in Detroit love the song and they get in on it. And it was crazy because, the Vikings were in it for a good while. The defense, they did what they were supposed to do. And then, unfortunately the offense couldn't keep up, and then the defense couldn't keep up anymore. And the dam broke and it just became a beatdown. And that place got so loud. And the in-house DJ was playing Swag Surf. He was playing Boosie Wipe Me Down. Like he was in his bag. And the fans were just, man, like Detroit, they ride for the Lions. And it was like pretty incredible to see. Also, outside of that first game from Kevin O'Connell against Detroit, what is he now? 1-5 against Detroit. Like they've had his number for the past 2.5 years. And that just seemed like they were just totally outmatched. Like once they couldn't convert 0 for 2 on fourth downs in the red zone, was it 0 for 5? on trying to convert touchdowns in the
0 for
red
4,
zone.
I think.
0 for
Yeah.
4. Yeah,
Yeah.
It was a bad situation, and it just seemed to go downhill. And the Vikings just once like they weren't executing and things just started to kind of fall apart, you could just tell like their focus was gone, their minds were gone, and the Lions just kind of like crushed them. They took their souls. It was pretty brutal. Like, knowing that there's a playoff game the next week and they got to lock back in, that was not the type of momentum you want to carry into the playoffs.
Well, one, I'll say I've never heard the song, not gonna lie. I never went to a game that I can remember as a kid as for Detroit Lions. My dad played for the Steelers, so I was a Steelers fan growing up. My dad and Lomas Brown, we've had Lomas Brown on the Ron Johnson show. I grew up, I knew Lomas Brown growing up. He
saw him on Sunday.
He lived right down the street from my dad.
Mm-hmm.
But no, we never actually went. We actually went to Pistons games. We did do that. I met Grant Hill, or not, I've met him before, but I ran into Grant Hill again and reminded him of when he signed a menu for me at a restaurant downtown Detroit called Floods. I was in high school and my dad got him to sign. And Grant was like, "Wait, you weren't in Floods, were you?" I was like, "No, I was in there early. I wasn't in there when you guys were in there." He was like, "Wait, high school kids can't get in Floods?" I was like, "Well, they could, but I wasn't in there." But Grant Hill, he's like, "Oh man, when you get home, man, you got to find that menu, man, and just screenshot it and send it to me." He's like, "That's great," because it was his rookie year in the NBA. But no, I never went to the Lions games, so I don't remember that fight song. I have seen friends of mine. I've seen friends of mine post it because a friend of mine, Christian Dorsey, went to my high school. He's like the chef for the Lions, and he does some stuff around Detroit, and he goes to every game. He flies with the team to every game. And so he was like, he just posted like, I can't believe I forgot the words, because like he must have been like in the DJ booth or something with the guy with the microphone. It looked horrible, it sounded horrible, but you know what? Like it means you won something. It means you've done something. I'm pretty sure people hate the MINNSOTA, Minnesota, yeah, rah, go for it. You know, like people hate that too. So you don't like it, stop it.
That's my thing, Ryan.
You don't like it, stop it. And that's what Cam Newton said. When Cam Newton got in trouble, when he was dabbing on people, hey, you don't want me to dab? Stop it.
I forgot about
and he was so defiant with it too.
Shout out to Elijah Spencer, by the way, because people didn't realize Elijah Spencer in North Carolina, when he scored at the Duke's Mayo Bowl, hit the Cam Newton, and people didn't know. Yeah. People were like, wait, is he still dabbing? No, he was doing it because he was in Carolina.
In Newton's building, yes.
In Newton's building, in the same area where Cam used to do it. That was the same end zone at that stadium that Cam would always do it, because that's the tunnel thing where the camera was. And so Elijah Spencer had been already repping that. And somebody caught it, because I saw it on Twitter where they put the two together and said Elijah Spencer pays homage to Cam Newton. But he did it the same terrible, funny way, like it was hilarious. And so, but if you don't like it, stop it. Here's where I go with this too, Reggie. You're dead on. The Lions found a way with Jahmyr Gibbs to just break the dam. And once the dam broke, the Vikings is trying to keep up with Kevin O'Connell, and that's the key. Or sorry, with Dan Campbell. You can't keep up with Dan Campbell. And that's the problem. You have to find your own way to manufacture your own points.
Yeah.
Because going forward on fourth down, they are the #1 team in the NFL on fourth down conversions at almost 27% when they go for it. And of passing plays, I didn't even look up the actual passing plays because it only goes touchdowns or first downs. And so in that number, there's punts and there's field goals in that. So if I remove the punts and the field goals, which I'm probably going to do today, I'm guessing they're right around 40-something%. It is nuts the amount of times he goes for it and wins. And so you got to find your own way. You got to do your own thing. It's like playing chess. I used to play chess all the time. I still do every once in a while. But when you play chess, they are super aggressive players. They will attack. If you try to play their game, you're going to leave your queen and your king basically unprotected. You can't do that. What you do is you invite that aggressiveness, and then the minute you have them where you know you want them, you clomp on them. And that's what Kevin O'Connell needs to do the next time, and maybe in 2 weeks. That's the goal.
Yeah, I feel like if they would have converted on a couple of those fourth downs, then the story goes, Kevin O'Connell beat Dan Campbell at his own game, but it didn't happen. And so I don't know if you've seen all the discourse with Acho and all that stuff, but he tweeted out that.
Oh, I've seen the discourse with Emmanuel Acho.
Yeah, well, he tweeted out and I thought it was actually a good take from him, but he tweeted out that Kevin O'Connell tried to play Dan Campbell's game, and he got outside of himself, and Dan Campbell beat Kevin O'Connell. Yeah, it was not. Yeah, it was not like, it was like Kevin O'Connell had like an out of body experience as a coach on Sunday, and he didn't do what he does well. He tried to play into what the Lions did. It just wasn't a good game plan.
I'm going to be a hard disagree on that. Kevin O'Connell did everything right. Kevin O'Connell did exactly what any coach should do on 4th and goal from that yard line. I don't think there's a question in my mind. If you go for 2 4th down and goals from the 2, in theory, your offense is good enough to make minimum 1 of those. Now they didn't, but the theory goes that if you make it once, that's 7 points. If you kick 2 field goals, that's 6. You're playing the probabilities, you're playing the percentages, and you're trusting in the best part of your team, which is low red zone. I think he nailed it. I think he did exactly what I want him to do. Now, if we're talking 5 or 6 yard line, that's Campbell behavior. If you're going for it on 4th and goal from the 5, that's different. 100% behind the decision making. Absolutely no issue with it. Julia, you were on the take the points train, I think. Yeah. And
that's how I was raised. Maybe it's because I was raised in Arkansas, a Cowboys fan. Who knows? But that's been my dad would always say, granted, in this situation, 6 points wasn't going to do them any favors considering how the rest of the game played out. But my dad has always harped on me. Like, I'm going to coach football at some point in my life, but he was always take the points early. If it's early in a game, take the points. And Saban was always one to do that. And so he always admired Saban when he's like, I'm watching the Alabama game and I have to respect the fact that he's taking the points here. So yeah, that was my whole life growing up, was take the points. And when we got to the half, we were like, yeah, I should have taken the points there. But then the second half unraveled and it was like, it wouldn't have mattered what they did there.
I just think that humans have a tendency to overlook the butterfly effect. Like people just assuming that, if we had kicked, it'd be 15-10. Well, no, it doesn't work that way, because think of, like, by missing on 4th down, then Jared Goff's throwing out of his own end zone. He throws a pick. Okay, that changed the flow of the game. The Ivan Pace interception was right after you missed on 4th down. Both of the turnovers came as a result of backing the Lions up, changing their play calling. So the whole game flows differently based on every decision that gets made. So I can't get on board with that argument. But Julia, kick us off with this topic. Your belief in a Sam Darnold bounce back. Definitely his worst game of the year, even though I don't know if in certain stats, maybe it wasn't as bad because he didn't have a turnover, but I think based on the stakes, his worst game of the year, in his biggest game of his career. What's your belief in the bounce back?
Vikings fans, don't hate me. I don't have a ton of faith in a Sam Darnold bounce back here, just because after the Jags game, we didn't see it there. He's not the one that won them the game against the Titans the next week. Will Levis technically outplayed him that week. So I don't know. This is just like, I know that he's had high pressure games and things like that being a starter here, but this was like the moment to really prove himself. And he just really crashed and burned on Sunday. And so I know obviously he's probably going to have a lot of conversations with Kevin O'Connell this week, and Kevin's going to do his best to get his confidence back up again. But it's going to be like, I would say it's like odds are he doesn't have a bounce back this week. I just think the odds are really not in his favor here, unless somehow he's able to get like his mind right and look back on the times where he was playing out of his mind and get back to that space. But it's going to be hard. You're going all the way across the entire country to go play a team on their home turf, the team that you already lost to this season. I just don't. I don't know. I think that it would be very surprising to see him come out and just like guns a-blazing play the way that he did, weeks leading up to this game.
Yeah, Ron, your thoughts?
I think he's going to do it. So here's the thing about it: Kevin O'Connell has a lot of film and a lot of things to reflect on. Like, one, and I looked it up, I had to take off the punts and all that stuff. The Lions, 67% of their first downs or touchdowns converted on 4th down. 6 touchdowns, which is number 1 in the NFL. Like, it is crazy how successful they are. And another one that was crazy, but they don't go for it as much, was the Washington Commanders, because they were 87% of their fourth downs, but they don't go for it as much as the Lions. And that's crazy. Like, to keep up with somebody that converts 67% of their fourth downs. Like, imagine if somebody converted 67% of their third downs. Like, oh my, like they would be the best team the best offense in the NFL. And so that's why Dan Campbell's so successful, is because he treats third down like fourth down. He's going for it on third down to get into fourth down territory. Like, he's like, look, I'm going to get everything I can get out of this third down, but I don't have to convert it. My goal is to make it 4th and 1, 4th and 2, even 4th and 3, and I'm going to go for it. And that's what's so tough when you're playing against a guy like Dan Campbell. And so for Sam Darnold and for Kevin O'Connell to look back on where they made their mistakes, there's the amount of time that Sam Darnold held the ball. You have to change it up. Like, it's okay to run 5-step drops in a hitch. It's okay to run 5 steps in a quick. It's okay to run 1 steps on a shotgun. If you go shotgun and you go 3 in a hitch, you got to get rid of the ball. And I think that was the key, is a lot of these routes. I'm even like Chase Daniels. You saw his breakdown. I don't know if you guys saw it on internet, and I commented on the what is it? I don't even know what the threads, I guess, is what it is now. And he's looking at the same thing. Talking about even the routes, and nothing against Chase Daniel, but like, I don't think he knows half the offenses that are out there, or even the own offense he was in half the time. He called Jordan Addison's route an under route. It was not an under route. That is not an under route when you rub with an inside receiver and you go underneath him and then you go back to the inline. It's an arrow pylon, or it's an arrow. They used to call it arrow crossbar, which means you run an arrow route and then you head for the crossbar and he's going to throw it over the top of the safety. Well, the safety never actually noticed Jordan Addison because he was worried about the tight end. He came over late, which killed that play. Jordan Addison on the flat route, he ran a wheel. It wasn't just a flat, because he would have stopped. He wheeled up the field thinking, if this guy's in man coverage, I'm going to have a pylon throw. So when you think about that, Kevin O'Connell's probably saying, you know what? I probably need to just run some 3-step drops with these guys, because these guys are better. They're getting open before I even know they're going to get open. And I think they overplayed the Detroit card, thinking Detroit is super aggressive. They're going to be super handsy and manned up. And they were. But I think he's going to fix that now. He's going to look at this game and say, why did I throw slants? Why did I throw a couple hitches to just get Sam Darnold going? I came out the guns blazing, throwing deep posts and deep corners. No, you don't have to dagger them. The reason Tom Brady was so good, if you go back and look at some of his drives in big games like that, because he would have 11 to 13 play drives. He would slowly matriculate down the field and just slice you with 1,000 cuts. Belichick was good on that. Time of possession. I'm a dice and slice you with my offense, and then my defense can go out there rested and take care of you. And then Tom Brady, you get back out there. 10 more drives, 10 more plays, swipe, swipe, swipe. And eventually you bleed out, because you're just like, man, we've been on the field for 50 plays, and it's the third quarter. That's why I was a little bit annoyed, because it felt like Kevin O'Connell kept going for the big home run, knockout swing, Mike Tyson. You don't do that. You have to be what's the guy's name from Detroit, the boxer, Floyd Mayweather. You got to be Mayweather. You got to slowly just jab, 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 and eventually let the judges say you won, sir. You don't have to knock anybody out. By the way, I don't know if you guys knew that Floyd Mayweather was from Michigan. A lot of you probably didn't know that, but shout out to Floyd Mayweather too.
I didn't. Reggie, so we've got Julia. Julia's got a little doubt. Ron's got some optimism. I probably lean more optimistically, just because we've seen Sam Darnold have these out-of-body experiences. Not much, but against the Jets in London, he was really wild. I mean, he did not know where the football was going off his hand. Against the Jaguars, people were having the conversation like, okay, here we go. Sam Darnold's turned back into a pumpkin, and he's been phenomenal in every game since, up until Detroit. So we've seen him struggle, similar to how he did, but then we've seen him bounce back. So was this different? Did this damage him in a more irreparable way because of what was at stake, Reggie?
Yeah, I think it just kind of remains to be seen. And I kind of look at, to Julia's point, I kind of look at some of the games that followed, and it seemed like, that Jacksonville loss was a low point. The interceptions and it just wasn't a great game at all from him. And then, he kind of bounced back. You saw Kevin O'Connell kind of make it simple for him, and it was, it was okay, but it was kind of like a slow rev up to, December Sam, if you will, where he went 5-0 and he was just balling in December. But if you look at those first couple games after the Jacksonville game, like, you know, he kind of turned it up in that Bears game, like that fourth quarter and overtime period. He was electric. He was money. But it took him a second. And look, I think I agree with Ron too. Like, I wasn't mad necessarily at the game plan that Kevin O'Connell had. He had trust in his guys and he believed that they can go out there and make plays. But where I think the adjustment should have been made was when he saw that Darnold was a little bit more wiry, he's missing these throws that normally he would have made. Like, if Sam would have just made the throws that we were used to him making, we probably would have seen them just throwing haymakers at each other on Sunday, which, you know, that would have been consistent with a Lions-Vikings game. Like that last Lions-Vikings game when it was at the bank, like they were throwing haymakers with one another. But it didn't work out like that. So I do think, to Ron's point, yeah, throw some short routes. Just, you know, let him get the ball out of his hands quickly, see it get into receivers' hands and just kind of build confidence that way. And then as the game goes on, you know, he has the confidence to let it rip a little bit more, and maybe we see a better and a different outcome in that game. And so I am gonna be cautiously optimistic that he can do it. I think the tough part is you don't necessarily want to get into like a duel with Matt Stafford. Like I just don't think that's gonna go well for the Vikings. And so I'm hoping that he bounces back. I don't think we have a lot of evidence that he will bounce back in the way that they need to, just based on how he's played in games after having a bad one. And so, you know, but Wes Phillips talked yesterday and he talked about how he believed in Sam's bounce back abilities. And, you know, I think Kevin O'Connell is a good enough coach that he's going to see what went wrong in that game and he's going to make the necessary adjustments. That's just a tough way to go into the playoffs when now you're in a win or go home situation and you've had confidence in this guy all season. And now you got to have confidence in this guy to keep your season going.
Yeah, I just can't get on board with the argument that he can't play in a big game, because we have seen him play in big games this year and do well. Packers, Seahawks, hostile environment, Packers at Lambeau. These are all big games. Detroit the first time. There was a lot at stake in those games too. So I'm thinking this was a clunker. This was a total system failure. Coaching, special teams, defense in the second half. Like, a lot of stuff went wrong. So I'm going to lean similar to Reggie, cautiously optimistic. When we return on the Minnesota Football Party bonus edition, a little trend or mirage with the Minnesota Vikings and a couple recent concern areas that's coming up next. We are brought to you today by FanDuel and FanDuel Sportsbook. It's America's #1 sportsbook for a reason, and the NFL playoffs are awesome with FanDuel because new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed, win or lose, $200 in your app. FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same game parlays, so much more. You can bet the first touchdown scores, anytime touchdown scores, dozens of wagering options. Love those prop bets, rushing totals, receiving totals, passing yard totals. Get on some of that at FanDuel with the NFL playoffs. Bet 5, get 200 at FanDuel.com or the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Make the playoff season unforgettable. See if you can get on the Vikings money line against the Rams. FanDuel is an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Before we do trend or mirage, I want quick whip around knee-jerk reaction to the following question. Quickly, Ron. If Sam Darnold has the exact same performance on Monday, another clunker, is that his final game as a Minnesota Viking?
If they lose in the playoffs and that's a clunker game, I'd say, yeah, it probably is. Unless he's willing to just come back for a lower amount, because somebody's still going to want to pay him a lot of money. I just don't think the Vikings can do it with a good conscience, knowing they have Daniel Jones and they have JJ McCarthy, and they just activated Daniel Jones and released the other quarterback, Rippon. And so it'll be not say hilarious, but it would be hilarious if like somehow Sam Darnold, because we've seen this, he has to go out for a play or two, maybe an ankle. And then Daniel Jones comes in, rips off a couple, runs a long run, RPO style in the red zone. And then everybody's clamoring for Daniel Jones to start the rest of the season and win a Super Bowl. Like that would be an absolute like in your face to the Giants when you think about Saquon Barkley. But yeah, if they do, I think this is the last game if he has a bad one.
Okay. Julia?
Yep, I'm going to agree with Ron here. I think that all of a sudden everyone hops off the bandwagon because that's where Vikings fans, they've been so hurt in the postseason. They've been so hurt, and they will not forget what happens on Monday night. So I would say a fan base will not be super happy if the Vikings end up.
There'll be Boys to Men music playing as Sam Darnold walks and leaves out of TCO.
Yeah, that would be funny if Daniel Jones came in and just like all of a sudden, what's happening?
If Kevin O'Connell's smart, I would like to see a red zone package with Daniel Jones. I would. RPO style.
It's got to be exhausting for Kevin O'Connell to constantly have to start from square one.
He asked for this. He loves
it.
He
loves it. He's a sicko in that way.
Clearly. It's like, all right.
You guys know I have a passion for developing quarterbacks.
Yeah, like if he can get 10 guys in the QB room, he would do it. Like that's his love. That's his joy.
He's like Robert Downey Jr. in Iron Man. He loves a good project.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I go I think I go no. I think I go no. I think if he does have a stinker, if you will, I think that increases the likelihood that he re-signs with the Vikings on another maybe 1-year deal. Maybe it's more than 10, maybe it's like 15 or something like that, because he did show some good stats and went to the Pro Bowl this year. But I think he's able to come back. You know, he competes with McCarthy for the starting job, maybe gives JJ McCarthy a little bit more of a runway to not have to play right away coming off that knee injury. And it looks good, another year in the system. But I think the whole Daniel Jones thing makes it a little bit difficult, because what if they just sign him to a 1-year, $10 million deal in the offseason to bring him back? Because everything he said, he enjoys Minnesota so far. Maybe he wants to come back and compete.
So self-sabotage. Darnold messes up on purpose so that he doesn't have to leave.
I think that a clunker makes the franchise tag look like a very appealing option, and it's more acceptable.
Yeah.
I think that where he was after the Packer game, he was in that $40 to $50 million stratosphere, like long-term deal, 4 years, $200 million. Like that's literally where he was at. I think that you took off $10 million per year with that Lions performance, and if you have another one like that, it probably reinforces that he's not the $50 million a year guy, but I still think he's closer to that than the $10 million guy, because he got you to that point. He won you 14 games. That you don't fluke into that. You don't back into that kind of year. But I think that another clunker, then it becomes very, very obvious that, all right, maybe JJ McCarthy is still the future, but we'd like one more year with Sam, one more bridge year, and give JJ like a healthy year to learn from the bench. I think that still makes a lot of sense, and I'd run it back. And I think that the tag is then very appropriate for 1 year and 40. That's so the answer is no. I think that a clunker just makes it easier for the Vikings to get that 1 year added on. Trend or mirage? Trend or mirage? I'm going to give you 3 areas. Tell me whether it's a trend, whether it's a mirage. It's a pretty easy game. Let's start with Reggie. Will Reichard missed a kick. He botched a kickoff against Detroit. Trend or mirage? Will Reichard struggles.
Man, I hate to say it.
Carefully.
I hate to say it, but I think it's a trend, and it's a trend at the wrong time. Yesterday, Matt Daniels reaffirmed his confidence in Will Reichard. He's like, look, the kickoff out of bounds and all that, he knows that can't happen. But all of a sudden, you know, a guy that didn't look like he was human, all of a sudden looks very mortal. And, he's missing field goals and kicking out of bounds and all that stuff. And all the kickoffs on Sunday, someone pointed out, were to the left. And, he's kicking these field goals, and now it looks like he doesn't have enough leg on those field goals where he was just booting them earlier in the season. So something's maybe not right with him. And maybe
he's just a Beyonce fan. Maybe,
maybe. But I think
Beehive.
But I think he's like, he was like, you know what? I'm good enough to kick. He saw what Parker Romo was doing. He's like, I'm coming back. I'm good. And maybe he's not all the way back right. I don't know.
It could be mental too, though. Like what you're saying,
Yeah.
Reggie. If he's not fully like, I can't put all my power into this, or I can't do this because I feel like I might strain it. That's the same thing with hamstrings. You don't know how your hamstring's doing until you get out there and go full speed. So that's what I wonder that too.
Yeah. Ron, are you trend or mirage on this?
I think it's a mirage. I think like even with TJ Hawkinson, and honestly, like I just watched, and I'm struggling with this because I just watched a couple of the red zone plays with the all 22. Kevin O'Connell missed some play calls that he could have called. And I hate to do it to my guy. I'm a fan of his wife, but I got to post it today. Like I looked at some plays. I am. She's on our show.
I know where your heart is. It's just out of context.
Yeah, Kwesi's wife and his wife. They were guests on our show. I'm a big fan of them. They are great people. Matter of fact, they got me one of the jackets. I haven't worn it yet, Sam. Maybe I'll wear it on Thursday's football party because they sent me the jacket. So, but yeah, I am just like thrown off by the lack of understanding in a kicker. Like kickers need psychologists. And I think that's what, like this time of the year, especially a rookie like him, like he needs somebody just to talk to him. Like, hey, it's okay, man. If you missed this kick, it's fine. Like, just go out there and do it. So, like, I think it's a mirage, though. I think he'll be fine.
Julia?
You guys already know my answer to this. Come on. I watched Will Reichard for 5 years when he was at Alabama. The NCAA points leader. It's not like you don't just automatically all of a sudden just fall off the wagon. I mean, this guy has kicked in huge games on huge stages. I think that this is 100% a mirage. I think I think Ron is right. I don't know if they do have psychologists or psychiatrists for him to talk to, but I know that they had a ton of sports psychiatrists at Alabama that were working with the entire team. I think it's just this is like the first time that he really has had an injury like he had in how many years? It's hard coming back from that when you've not dealt with that. I mean, maybe he dealt with it in high school, but he definitely didn't deal with it at Alabama. So I think it's a mirage. I think Willie's going to get his get back.
Ron with the jacket. That is actually very sweet.
It is. It's a nice jacket. Shout out to Leah O'Connell and Chelsea Adolfo-Mensah. I will be wearing this tonight at the Vikings party, and then Friday we're at the Mall of America, and I will probably wear it again because they sent it to me. It's got a lot of little, like, it has Leah and Chelsea's name in like a football on the sleeve. Like it's a lot of details to this thing, and then the back is like it's immaculate. But yeah, it's like a starter jacket.
Ron, stop flexing. Starter jacket. Stop flexing.
I like it.
Just flexing on us.
I got my wife, and then they got my wife the leather. What is that thing with the fur? So she got that for Christmas. They were able to get me one of those for her, and we got matching ones of those. And then I got the blue jean jacket, of course, that we wore on the pregame show. So they did do a nice job with this. But again, sorry, it's not about Leah and Chelsea today. Sorry.
And I'm wearing this pink sweater from Target.
Fit check.
Would that be Christmas sweater or more of like Valentine's Day? Like you pivoted.
Valentine's Day.
That's definitely Valentine's Day.
I got this for Valentine's Day last year.
Okay. Very nice. I've still got the tree in the background, and I think it might be the statute of limitations might be running out.
I put mine up the other day.
January 3rd, it was out the door.
I know some people that leave it up until St. Patrick's Day.
In March?
Yeah, some people leave it up till Valentine's Day.
There's a Minnesota neighborhood in Victoria or Chaska, I think we drove by last night. The entire street is still full of lights. Like I'm talking about like
January hits,
full Christmas lights like everywhere. Like trees still lit up, like Santa's still out front waving his arm. Like, yeah.
It'll be up until Easter.
I hate that. That depresses me.
Till he has risen.
Exactly. There you go. You take it down after Easter.
We go through the whole life cycle before we take the Christmas decoration.
Exactly.
Just have a doubting Thomas out there with his hand, like, looking for Jesus. Like, where's Jesus at?
I'm a doubting Thomas on Will Reichert to bring it back to reality. I'm saying trend for the following reason.
No.
Wow. Whoa, Sam. Trend.
Years and years and years of him being phenomenal, and he misses a few field goals, and everyone's giving up.
Wow. Okay, Sam.
Well,
tell us why, Sam.
You want to hear my rationale?
Yes,
so
you're a hater.
He's missing in a litany of different ways right now. He missed with a slice against the Lions from left to right. He missed with a hook against the Packers on that shorter kick where it doinked. I'm also a little concerned that he left a 57-yarder short simply because we saw him earlier in the year. I believe it was 58. Make it with relative ease. So the strength seems to be diminished slightly. He mishit a kickoff, obviously. So there's a couple different ways that he's missing. And I wonder if he knows where the ball is going right now. If you have a predictable flight, that can be accommodated for. But not if you don't know which way the ball's going. That means you're overcompensating for something. That's why I think this is a trend. And that's why I have a little bit of concern.
Because he's injured, you think, still? Or
I think that could play into it. I don't think that's necessarily
some mental stuff going.
Yeah.
Kicking is a very technical beast.
It is.
It's you got 2-3 steps before the ball. You got to be super precise. Your landing foot has to be precise. The sweeping motion of the leg. I mean, it's a really technical deal, and I can't diagnose it. I just know what I'm seeing, and that's different flights of the ball. The ball's coming up short, just a little bit alarming for me. Cam Robinson had probably his worst game of the year, 9 pressures allowed against Detroit. Trend or mirage with Cam? Let's start with Julia.
Oh, man, all my Bama guys. I'm going to go trend with Cam. I'm going to be honest here. I understand that he was kind of an impact player, but this was the Jags that he was coming from. Sorry, my cat is...
That shadow is so haunting.
Sorry about that, everybody. But I just think I think it's just turning into like he is the weakest link that's on the offensive line right now. I think also the penalties are insane. Remember that one game? I don't remember what game that was, but I tweeted and I was like, I think Cam Robinson's gonna foul out of this game because he had like 5 flags at that point. That's a little ridiculous. I mean, you're that's like the main part of your like one of the. There's a lot, like there's a few things you got to do as an offensive lineman, and one of those top priorities is knowing snap count. And I just think he's kind of caused problems for them, and then also just not been reliable. So I think that unfortunately, as much as it pains me to say about another Bama guy, I think it's turning into a trend.
Reggie.
I'll go Mirage. I think, he's still getting adjusted. He's still, just trying to make sure he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. Honestly, this is probably the most meaningful football that he's played since he was at Bama. And so, still just trying to figure things out. I think as the time goes on, they've been working with him, and I think they're going to trust him to do what he needs to do in LA.
I'm going to go trend. If you tally it all up, look at the way that he ended the season, ended with a career high in pressures allowed, 52, most penalties since his rookie year, 2017. So the stats, not kind to Cam.
Not beating the allegations.
No, the receipts are there. Ron Johnson.
I'm gonna go with Mirage, and this is why. I do feel like the amount of steps the quarterback takes in the pocket can alleviate some of that. And so a couple of the plays I'm going to post today, one, and you guys might remember this, when they went bunch left, TJ Hawkinson was tight right by himself. And that's what I've been asking in the post-game fan line. I'm like, why didn't we throw the fade on those? And I actually found the play. Now the Lions, after the play developed, went zone. So if TJ Hawkinson just releases wide, like runs a pylon route, literally just because it's called a pylon, literally it's a fade, but we call it pylon, which means I'm going step, and I'm running straight to the pylon because the ball is going to be thrown up high where I can look at it and decide if I'm going to jump and get it because he's 6'5", and the guy guarding him was 5'11". So literally mouse in the house, Charles Barkley on Isaiah Thomas, you go after it. Shaq on Kevin Hart.
Barbecue chicken, and you throw the fade. So I feel like if you do some of that down there and you do some of that like in the field of play, it alleviates the the defensive line's ability to just rush because now they're thinking we got to get our hands up to stop the 3-step. That's why you see a lot of quarterbacks hitch because they're hoping that'll hold the D line for a second and then they're ready to throw again. And that was Tom Brady's and I hate to, I know people hate Tom Brady, but if you go back and watch Brady, and Manning did it too. People always thought the shoulder thing was like they're trying to get a double. No, they're trying to make the defensive line hesitate and put their hands up. And now the offensive line can continue to grab and hold and push them back. And then that gives you maybe an extra second to get rid of the ball. We didn't see any of that from Sam Darnold. Now, again, I'm talking about Tom Brady. I'm talking about Peyton Manning. We know Sam Darnold's not those guys. But Kevin O'Connell can, because he talked about that early in the season where Sam Darnold was doing that. I didn't see that against the Lions. So I think that's a mirage.
All right, last one. Dallas Turner. No, I'm just kidding. No more Bama guys. How about Justin Jefferson's drops? He was credited with 2 of them against the Lions. Ron, trend or mirage?
Mirage. Is there something less than mirage? Like whatever it is, like hell no, that's never happening again. Hallucination, daydreaming. Mariah Carey, Halle Berry, and somebody else were in your bedroom yesterday. Like whatever that is, that's what his drops are. Like this man is the best receiver in the NFL. Part of it was really sticky defense. A little bit of it was frustration. You can tell after each play. So no, it's not going to happen.
I thought that Pro Football Focus, who credited the drops, I thought they were a little unkind because those were pretty tough catches. Probably catches he usually makes, but tough to say the least. Julia.
Yeah, it's a mirage. The bar is so high for Justin Jefferson that anytime he does drop a ball, everyone's like, and that says a lot about who he is as a player, right? I no way would I ever say trend on this. Like Ron said, best receiver in the league. It's a mirage. I think it's a accumulation of things that's happening when he's dropping the ball there. There's a few there that, yeah, sure, it's his fault, but like he's not superhuman. Right. And sometimes, like you said, those are on passes or on catches that regular receivers.
Those regular guys.
The ones that live on Earth. The ones that they're not catching.
I want Reggie to craft an argument to say it's a trend.
I'm gonna say trend now. No, I can't in good faith. What was interesting was one of the passes that I wouldn't have blamed him for if he dropped. He actually, caught it and made a big play on. And, that was like, oh, that's the Justin Jefferson we know. But, if you think back to some of these contested catches or some of these crazy catches, the one that didn't count a few weeks ago where he caught it with the one hand or whatever, it looked like it was out of reach. And he still was able to catch that thing and it didn't count because of a penalty. I just think, it's not. It was interesting, the one play that he didn't make in the end zone. The ball wasn't a good ball, and he kind of bobbled it, and before he could get a chance to really like possess it, he went out of bounds in the back of the end zone, and it was like, dang, that's not really one that you expect that to happen, but it wasn't that great of a ball, and so I don't think. Whenever he does have those games where maybe some uncharacteristic drops or whatever, he always comes back and does well. What I didn't think was all this tape out there of Meek Robertson, locking him up or whatever, people saying that he shut him down. I don't necessarily think that was the case because there were some plays that could have been made that weren't made and he would have had a better day. So I don't know. I think it's very much so a mirage. I think he'll bounce back.
Yep, and I would agree with that. He dropped that touchdown against the Bears on Monday night, if you remember that, the wide open one.
Yeah.
That's the only like bad drop I can really think of this year. I thought the two against the Lions, it was just epitomized the whole night. The Vikings didn't make any contested catches in that game. Everything that was contested was dropped or broken up. Nobody hauled in anything tough in that game. Jefferson, by the way, against the Rams in week 8, 8 receptions for 115. He went off. And I don't know if there is a Ram, and this actually pivots us into our next bit. Which Ram do you want to contain? Or, I mean, contain is that implies that they're an offensive player. Which Ram do you want to expose? Like if maybe it's a defensive player, who do you think you can exploit? We'll go that direction next on the Minnesota Football Party. We are brought to you today by Prize Picks. It's playoff time. If you're like me, you want to make the most of these final weeks of football action because that's where Prize Picks is so much fun. It's the best way to play daily fantasy sports. If you love football and you want to win real money, Prize Picks is the way to do it. Turn your opinions into cash with daily fantasy player projections. You pick more or less between 2 and 6 player stats, put together your entry, win up to 1,000 times your money. The entry takes like 60 seconds to put together. And I like the flex play because you don't have to be perfect with the flex play. You can miss one and still profit on that entry. Go 4 out of 5, 5 out of 6, 3 out of 4. Prize Picks has you covered. They've got over 10 million members and billions with a B in winnings. Special offer for Locked On NFL listeners. Download the app today. Use code Locked On NFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Again, download the app today. Use code Locked On NFL. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. We are also brought to you by Rocket Money. It's a new year, and if you want the new year to introduce a new you financially, take control of your finances, you got to buy into Rocket Money. Rocket Money saves money. Over 500 million in canceled subscriptions saved by Rocket Money users per year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users. And when you use their premium features, you can save $740 a year on average. They help lower your bills and grow your savings with their subscription tracker to help cancel services that you're not using anymore. Comes in handy. We've got way too many subscriptions these days. Everything costs $1. Everything is it requires that monthly fee, and Rocket Money helps you stay in control. No more stressing about budgeting. Cancel those unwanted subscriptions. Reach your financial goals with Rocket Money. RocketMoney.com/lockedon. RocketMoney.com/lockedon. Head there today. RocketMoney.com/lockedon. Okay, whip around the panel here, and I want to hear a Ram, a Los Angeles Ram, that you most want to contain or exploit or just straight up beat in this game. One person that you want to hold down. Let's start with Mr. Ron Johnson.
Puka Nacua, no questions asked. Everybody knows why. He is one of the best receivers on that offense. Cooper Kupp is no longer the guy. Puka Nacua last time killed the Vikings on moving the chains. You got to stop him.
And he's healthier now than he was.
Way healthier, way stronger. Like, he's a beast.
And he was pretty good in that first Vikings game, just coming off the injury.
Right.
Flores with the admission yesterday that we weren't really prepared for it. We didn't think he was going to play. We were scrambling, trying to come up with a game plan. I hope they have one this time.
I just imagine them in the locker room, like The Office, that scene from The Office with what's his name, the main guy, Steve Carell, running back and forth, like, it's happening. Everybody was good. Like you got to stop Puka.
Yeah, I think Puka's their best receiver by far. I think Cooper Kupp's a clear number 2. I don't think it's 1A, 1B anymore. I think it's Puka all the way. Julia, is that where you would go, or would you go in a different direction?
I'm going to go the Vikings blitz more than anybody ever in the history of time. And Matt Stafford's pretty good against the blitz. You got to give him that. And he has like really great offensive line. So Matt Stafford, you're gonna have to find a way to shut him down. Besides, unfortunately, what the Vikings defense tends to do best, and what they do most often. So yeah, I think he proved that in the last matchup between these two. Let me see if I can pull up his.
Yeah, Stafford was balling in that game.
Yeah, he had 13 dropbacks against the pass, completing 10 of 13, 128 yards, no sacks, and one of those that was an incompletion. So
against the blitz. Yeah. Very Goff-like. I mean, that's what Goff did to them in both games. Granted, Goff slipped up a couple times on Sunday night through those picks, but also he beat him on some key fourth downs too. Stafford is super savvy. You're absolutely right. Reggie.
Yeah, that's where I was going to. John Matthew Stafford. Like you got to stop him. You stop him, and he's the key to everything on that offense. I think if he's playing well, then that means that the run game is going well with Kyron Williams, who's a threat as well. The last time that they played the Rams, the play that sticks out in my mind is when they had him in the grasp. Harrison Phillips had him in his grasp, and he jumps out of that and fires a rocket over Josh Metellus' hand to Cooper Kupp in the end zone for a touchdown. He threw that pick to Byron Murphy, and it's like it didn't even matter because he threw 4 touchdowns. And I agree with Julia. I think I know he loves the blitz, but Brian Flores can't get too blitz happy with Stafford because Stafford has found ways, in Flores' words, to embarrass, kind of undress defenses. And, I think he has a mastery of McVay's offense and what he's trying to do. And all the things that Flores was trying to run at him just didn't work. And you look at it when he employed the zero and Goff dropped back and hit Jahmyr Gibbs in the flat, and he just walks into the end zone. And I think you look at those type of plays and you're like, yeah, that can't happen against Stafford because he'll make you pay the same way. And so I think if you are just content to try to play coverage, which I know, he can find ways to make it look a little bit more exotic and try to get home with the pass rush after not sacking him or putting him on the ground once in that last matchup, I think you got to do that.
Smith is in the chat in all caps, asking about the refereeing in this game. And that actually brings me to a point of last Vikings-Rams game. The Vikings gave the Rams 5 first downs via penalty. I think most of those were on third down, and a couple of those calls were very debatable. I mean, there was a holding on Byron Murphy that was non-existent. There was an interference on Gilmore that was marginal when the Vikings would have had him stopped. So I think there were some weird things that happened in that game. The in the grass play with Stafford, just get him down, man. He didn't get sacked in the game. That should have been one of them.
Darnold face mask.
The no face mask. Jalen Naylor drops an easy ball that could have led to a touchdown. Just weird stuff. Weird stuff happened on that Thursday night. I'm just going to cheat for my answer and say, you've got to do something to that offensive line. I gave Ron, I think, this stat yesterday. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I did. Can't remember. Matthew Stafford has not been sacked since December 1st.
Yeah.
That's so long ago. 4 straight games he wasn't sacked. I don't think he was sacked in 7 or 8 games this year. So if you can find a way to give that offensive line something they haven't seen before, I will never forget Mike Zimmer in the wild card game against the Saints on the road. He put Danielle Hunter and Everson Griffin inside. He put them, and they'd been on the edge all year. He flipped them inside against the weaker guards of the Saints, and they absolutely feasted. One of the great Vikings coaching maneuvers, I think, that gets overlooked. What can Flores do to shake up that Rams offensive line? That's the group that I most want to fluster in this game. Final minutes here, Minnesota Football Party. Quick, bold prediction. Again, the results from last week. Julia, you were absent. I think you would have nailed it. I mean, I think you were probably going to go with the Vikings don't score a touchdown or something like that. That's probably the direction you were going to go.
I'm so glad you have so much faith in me.
Well, or you would have gone with TJ Hawkinson scoring a touchdown.
Definitely Hawkinson on a touchdown.
One of those two. Well,
Do
Ron,
I do it again?
go ahead. What?
Do I do it again?
Yeah, go with it. What you got?
I think you have to.
Stick with TJ?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That'll be mine.
All right.
TJ Hawkinson. Come on, TJ. You can't do this to me.
Every week it gets bolder because he hasn't done it all year. So like, the boldness of the prediction just continues to increase.
It's never going to score.
I'm gonna tell him. You know what? Should I tell him that tomorrow or Friday if I see him? Hey, man, listen. Help me out. Help a girl out.
Yeah. By the way, he got robbed on that review in the Lions game. He clearly had that ball. It
did touch the ground though in the back end of it, and that's what I think they were looking at. Is how much did that assist him in the catch? But I think he had it in the grabs too. I hate that slow mo because if they call it a catch, it's a catch. Like move on. I hate that.
Yeah, that was tough. Ron, you missed on your Sam Darnold 300.
I'm going back. I'm doubling down. He's not going to have two bad games. Sam Darnold gets his 300-yard game in the playoffs, and everybody's back on his bandwagon. And we'll see you in Detroit.
See you in Detroit. Could happen. Reggie, you missed on Justin Jefferson 200+ yards. You're 2-2 on your bold predictions.
Well, I'm going back to Justin Jefferson. If you recall, that last game against the Rams, Darnold threw touchdown passes to Josh Oliver and Trent Sherfield. Like, what? Now, either it gets weird again, but I don't think so. I think Justin Jefferson has a big game in this playoff game because he's due, and he's not trying to go home yet. And so I think he has 2 touchdowns for Sam Darnold and that offense.
The 2-touchdown Jefferson prediction has treated Reggie well. I was the only one to get my bold prediction last week. I said Jared Goff, multiple interceptions, and it came true. Just the third time he's done that all year. I am going to, again, make a selection that goes against the trend with the opposing quarterback, and I will say 4 sacks of Stafford. The unsackable quarterback will go down 4 times. I'll even lay it out for you. 1.5 for Grenard, half for Jihad Ward. He and Grenard will share one. Van Ginkel gets one, and Cashman gets one. They didn't face Cashman the last time. Cashman will get one. So that's the allotment. As specific as possible there. Great show, everyone. We will be back tomorrow with Arif Hassan, Luke Braun, and Luke Inman on the Minnesota Football Party. Ron Johnson joins as well, as he does every Thursday. And we got the postcast after the game on Monday. So still a lot of coverage, a lot of build-up to this Vikings-Rams game. Can't wait for it. It's playoff season. Big thanks to Reggie and Julia. Catch them on Care 11, Ron Johnson Show, all over the place here at Locked On Sports Minnesota. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Find us on the Locked On Vikings audio feed and subscribe on YouTube to Locked On Sports Minnesota. Talk to you next time.